Hi, my name is Ken Trulson, and I'm sitting in front of what used to be the old fire station in town. I was born and raised in Northbrook, and after my service in the United States Navy on a destroyer escort, I returned to Northbrook in 1946 and joined the volunteer fire department. To the right of me is the yellow building, which was the original civic association, which housed many of the aspects of Northbrook. It was built around 1926, and there was a front office that was established for the village clerk, where all the water bills were paid, where you picked up your vehicle tag and that, and there was one person that represented the village, who was Norma Olson. In the other corner, way up in the northeast corner, was the office for the police chief. On the north end of the building was the boiler room, and across from the boiler room were two jail cells. On the west side of the building there was a one-bay fire station. This housed the old Persh pumper. This was not the first fire station in town. The first one was a frame building which was originally donated by the Lawrence family and housed a little handheld pumper. Later on, the Civic Association built that building and housed the fire station. After a while, there was a pump station, a pump building, which looked like a one-car garage, which way to the north, which housed the village well and the Public Works Department. Later on, the fire department built this three-bay station to accommodate their vehicles. You'll notice the bays designated by the pillars on the Lannon stone wall behind me. This accommodated everybody, and it was purchased, or was built by, and the cost established by the fire department. A fellow by the name of Beaner Scher was the general contractor. This was also formulated to have a second story. Steel beams were installed in case they wanted a meeting room up there, or dance hall, or whatever. After this was finished, different fire trucks were purchased and housed here. As a boy, I was always interested in firefighting. When the alarm would sound, I would follow the fire trucks on my bicycle and maybe be rewarded with a ride home on a fire truck by either Fire Chief Therian or Fire Chief Booker. In this building that we're now presently sitting, this large meeting room, which was originally constructed by the Civic Association, accommodated many of the organizations in town. The fire department would meet here, the Civic Association would meet here, the village board would meet here, and other organizations that desired a meeting place. As we progressed along and built this building, the fire department absorbed the cost of building the three bays which we had just witnessed and built a hose tower at the northwest corner of the building. This was a high building, 50 feet high, and they installed a siren. So when an alarm came in, the siren was sounded, and any of the volunteers in town would be able to respond. 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, the first one down here would throw a switch which would send off the siren, and then open the bay doors waiting for additional help to come, and then take the equipment to the fire scene. I wanted to also mention that we raised all of these funds by a card and bunco party or participating in Northbrook Days. The fire department's job was to purchase and sell tickets for the car, the American Legion to run the beer booth, and the Civic Association underwrote and manned the rest of the booths. There was always a friend in town who wanted to do something for the fire department. We had a fellow that worked for Wilding Pictures who donated his time and camera to take pictures of many scenes that we had going on here in town. Some of these were our annual Fire Prevention Week show, which was showed the interest of the fellows to the citizens of Northbrook. This will be shown in some of the film that you're about to see. We all had full-time jobs around town, and I remember those days very fondly. We would leave our job and report to help our neighbors. The first segment of the film shows the 2 fire trucks leaving the station to go to a drill at the naval base. You'll note that some of this has been edited backwards, and the lettering on the fire trucks are backwards. However, once we got there, we show the evolutions being performed on a burning airplane and the rescue of a pilot. This is repeated several times and on different Sundays. We basically did this on Sundays when all the fellows were in town. Then we went back maybe a month later and tried it again, or performed it again, and you'll notice that the fire chief from Glenview Naval Base, but he was a retired Chicago fire chief and took over, but in one sequence he's got his daily work uniform on, and the other he's in full dress uniform with the other 2 fire chiefs. The original script and film, which was put on a 16mm reels, was transferred to video and has been recorded and by a volunteer who has given us the script for all of these films that you're about to see. Hope you enjoy it. This is a scene of on a Sunday morning when all the volunteers had assembled at the fire station to go to the Glenview Naval Air Station for drilling on airplane fires. There were a lot of airplanes in the air around Northbrook, and in the past several had crashed in that vicinity. So we would go there and train so we'd know what to do if we had an airplane fire. Here you can see the airplane being ignited by a high-octane gas pouring on it and in the pavement. And then the 2 engines are responding to the alarm.
That's engine 157, an open cab American LaFrance. It's got 750 gallons of water on it, and it's a 750-gallon pumper. The water won't last long. These guys that are attacking the plane, they're supposed to have 2 lines, 1.5 inches that we had in them days, shoulder to shoulder, with a guy in the middle. The guy in the middle with the ladder is supposed to make entry to the aircraft and get the victim out. You notice they got their helmets on backwards? Why is that, Kenny?
That is offend some of the heat. In those days, we didn't have the Scott air packs and that, but holding the shield down would divert the heat away from the face. Now you see the plane has been, the fire has been extinguished, and they're evaluating the situation with Chief Miller, fellow in the white coat.
If you notice, there's lots of white coats out there, and this guy standing in the dress uniform there, the tall guy, that's Don, and he's going to have a big expense on his bill when he takes it to the cleaners, because that stuff gets on you that don't come off.
And the little fellow in the uniform was McKenzie. He was the chief at the Glenview Naval Air Station and a retired battalion chief of the city of Chicago. He was very cooperative with us to present us with the airplane and the fuel to ignite it.
These guys, when they put the ladder up there, right now they're rolling back up their hard line on the booster that each rig carried. And if you look up there, they're trying to line it up so it all gets rolled up on there. That booster line was their secondary backup line. The line they're packing on now is the 1.5 inches. That's their primary line of extinguishment. On this particular scene, they did not use any foam.
You notice that the lettering on the truck is backwards, so when this film was edited from the original 16 millimeter can reel, the photography was put on backwards, which is a drastic mistake for some of these people that are presenting this kind of equipment.
Now what they're doing now, this is the second evolution they're doing. It's like a rerun. They're practicing. Each company gets a chance to take different positions on the actual putting out the fire. There'll be different people on the hose line this time. Now these guys in the right over here, they're setting down a 2.5 with foam. They're going to put foam on the fire. Foam has a tendency, when it covers over a fire, it covers and takes away the oxygen. And that's the way we try to eliminate flashovers. If you break that seal of foam, you'll have a flashover on you. See now here, you see the fellows coming in with the ladder. They're all banged together there. The reason for that is they're going to try and make entry. They're going to put the ladder up and try and get the person out of the aircraft. Now you'll see them charge up there with the ladder. These guys that are doing this, they're all veterans. They've all been in their job a long time. They know what they're doing. If you notice, it only takes a couple seconds and they have the fire put out. The dummy is rescued. Now what they're doing now is overhaul on the skin of the aircraft to make sure the fire is all out, so that when they rekindle it again for the next evolution, that it won't go off on them ahead of time. They're washing back the foam now is what they're doing. That guy in the white coat there, that's Lowell Mueller. That's that cab American, that was a FWD sitting there. That could really go out in the country. We use that quite a bit extensively in the rural area for going off-road.
Again, it shows the firemen washing down the excess gas that might have lingered on the pavement. Then again, all the equipment had to be put back in service, ready for the next call. But there was one thing that was showing wrong. When they went up with the ladder, they went to the front of the plane. They should have been in the back of the wing, because in case the wing was armed with their machine guns, they could have started discharging and made a hazardous entry.
This aircraft sits in a little pit out there is where it sits, and they always have to wash back all the excess fuel. And here we go again. They're lighting it off again for another evolution. It'll be the same tactics. Maybe this time they won't use the foam, but it'll be different people again. This stuff burns really hot. If you notice, the fellow that's standing with the nozzle in his hand open, getting his spray on to get the spray that pushes the heat back from you. See, he's getting down low, because the lower you get, the bigger the pattern you get, pushes back more of the heat.
And again, the attack from the front is erroneous, because again, the armored plane could start firing machine gun or bullets at these fellas, so they should attack it from the rear of the wing. But these were the things that we had to discuss at the end of the drill and review, so that in case it was a real crash, they could expedite the evolution correctly.
And Ken mentioned if they had a crash, we did have 3 crashes in Northbrook. We had one in Glenview that took the life of a 16-year-old girl in her house. We had one that went down on 2nd Street and went right in like a torpedo. It hit the street and went right into the house. And that particular day, the little girl was having a birthday party, but she was sick. So Mom canceled the party. It's a good thing she did. We had one come down on Pewaukee on the Sky Harbor Airport. He thought he was landing at Glenview, but he was landing at the Sky Harbor Airport. And then we had one, the mayor of the city of Chicago. There's your foam. There's your foam. There's that pickup tube that those fellows are using. I have that. It will be on display the night of the dinner. It's something that's It's a relic, but it did the job. We had, it's quite expensive, that foam that we used. It's, the departments don't like to train with the new stuff. We have old foam that we train with.
And now, instead of carrying a 5-gallon can near the fire, it is, we got an adapter right at the engine that we can lift the cans off the engine and set them on the ground and put the adapter in there and advance the hose lines on the fire without worrying about carrying the can of foam with you.
And
here again is the 2 trucks, both owned by the Rural Fire Protection District.
The new engines nowadays, the foam system is built into the engine. All the engineer has to do is open a valve, and it's there for him. Now cleanup time. There's always cleanup time. There's as much time spent cleaning up as there is actually drilling, because this foam, when it gets on things, it has a tendency, it rusts. It rusts everything. You have to wash your hoses out. You have to wash your clothes off. And if you notice where they're down near the end of the runway, down near Willow Road.
This again, another scene at a different time. Everybody is in their dress uniform rather than their work clothes.
There's one picture scene back there before where I saw Captain Strauss walking through with his cigar sticking out of his mouth. He was known for that.
The fellow's by the name of Vic Collins. He volunteered for several years in town, moved to Florida, bought some property, later on sold it, and then Disney World got built on the same property, and his wife was very angry because he had sold the property for a small amount where he could have made a fortune.
These guys that you're looking at here, all these people here, are all, I say 90% or more of them are veterans. Those people that are fighting the fires and being volunteer firemen throughout this whole country. They're the same guys that stormed Iwo Jima. They're the same guys that went on D-Day in Normandy. These are the same people doing their thing at home now.
This is a new fire truck that the village in Northbrook purchased. They had put a contract in for this during the war years in the early 1940s. However, during the war it was undeliverable and finally came in I believe in 1945 or 46. It's built by the American of France. Now this shows an attack on a structural fire with the equipment that is available on these trucks. We have a clown dressed as a fireman who salvages the toilet paper out of this outhouse.
Now he doesn't know what to do with it.
This is showing you all the streams of water that can be conducted from a single fire engine. This is a tank truck. This was donated by Culligan. They use this for putting zeolite out on the streets in Northbrook, and later donated to the fire department, which was converted to a tank truck. This is the American La France again, and there's a divided hose bed, which we'll go into a little bit later on. We had no real long ladders, so we adapted the purse to carry a 55-foot aerial ladder, which is mounted on top of the truck. Here's a fireman again demonstrating some of the things you should or should not do at a fire. This is portrayed by Ken Trulson, who was a lieutenant at the time. This is Joe Bolzinger. He was chief of fire prevention, showing different phases of fires and how to extinguish them. This would be a picture of an office with a wastebasket and how it can be extinguished with a pump can in plain water. Then we have a chimney constructed here, or show you what a chimney fire would look like. This carbon would form in a regular chimney in the house, get ignited and burn, and we showed how to extinguish that. This is part of the crowd that used to turn out at Fire Prevention Week to look at that. The town was probably a population of around 3,000, and we had a very good percentage of representation watching our demonstrations. Here he's using a pyrene fire extinguisher to extinguish electrical fire. Now this was outlawed because it put up, would cause phosgene gas, which was very irritable to the lungs and in some cases fatal. Here we drop a piece of fire, a fireman is chasing the clown with a bucket of water. This is an old circus act. He picks up another bucket to chase the fireman who is heading for the crowd, and the fireman, or the clown, throws this bucket of water at the fireman, which ends up to be confetti, but the circus act made the people have a good time laughing at that. Here's an electrical fire showing how wires could start igniting. And this is extinguished with a CO2 extinguisher. Chief Bolsinger conducting the demonstrations.
If you notice all the kids standing around in the background, everybody got all excited when the clown comes out.
Here's the chimney fire again. The carbon in the chimney is burning, and this was extinguished basically with a fusee, one of those regular fusees that they use on the railroad, and we carried them on the engine in case that we'd stick it at the base of the face of the fire, would send up this carbon dioxide gas. And
50 years later, we still do the same thing. There's an engine right there they pulled up. They paid $11,115 for that. Here comes the girls.
This is a fire, we crowned a fire prevention queen, and this is the girl here. I think she might have been the prom queen, and we adapted her as a fire prevention queen. And this is her court that were the runner-up in this election at the high school. Mayor Eddie Grease presenting her with a gift, and the crown is Miss Fire Prevention Week. Here comes last year's queen. A change of uniform, a change of costume by the clown. Notice the sign that says last year's queen.
What year last? Ken, what year last was that? I think everybody came to see the clown. They came to see the clown to see if he could out-trick everybody.
Here the queen is presented with a bouquet of roses and another gift, and all the girls in the court were presented with some type of a gift. Too bad we didn't remember the names of these girls.
It's a good thing we don't know their names. They'll probably be after us.
Now we get out of the last year's queen uniform back in the clown's uniform.
Here comes a $11,000 engine again. When they got it, it didn't have any chrome on it. If I remember, that was a big fund drive thing that we did.
Actually, a fella by the name of Joe Stanwich worked for a company that did chrome work on their brass nozzles and so forth, and he took some of the equipment and chromed. Here we're going through another evolution where the interior of a building is supposed to be on fire, and we have to put on Scott air packs to go in and rescue whoever's in there. Men are assembling their packs now to enter this building, probably a lot of carbon monoxide and smoke in there, and are penetrating. Now they have located the victim and are carrying him out, what the age-old firemen carry. He then is laid on that stretcher, and a doctor is called. Some of the fellows are starting artificial resuscitation, which is the old type, before the modern type was invented or sanctioned by the medical association. Here he's given some oxygen. We carried an oxygen tank, or what we call an inhalator. These fellows are performing the resuscitation now and switching partners. Now a doctor is called by our mobile telephone. This mobile phone was the first mobile telephone installed in fire equipment in the whole United States. It was not the best of communications, however. You had to go through several different operators. First of all, the operator was on that frequency, who in turn called the operator in the local town, who in turn called whatever number you would asked for. Now they're carrying the fellow away, and there's the doctor that had requested that he be transported to a local hospital. In those days, the fire department did not have an ambulance and utilized a station wagon that was owned by the police department.
Get in the back of a police station wagon and trying to do compressions. The stretcher either rolls around, knocks you down, or you fall off your count, or when you shift gears, you fall on your face. The patient's getting a very rough treatment in the back of these station wagons. It's not like the ambulances that we have nowadays. The technology has gone so far that
here we show entering a building that's supposedly on fire. We got a ladder up to the roof of the building, and we've advanced hose lines into the building. Okay, this shows again the purse with the ladder that the department mounted on top of it to facilitate entry into a higher building that was occasionally being built in Northbrook. Now this is raised by 6 people. Fellas grabbing the poles here, we call them tormentors. You got 2 fellas that are guided on those, 2 fellas at the top of the ladder lifting it, 2 fellas at the base, and once the ladder is raised, the tormentors are positioned and the ladder is raised.
they're climbing the ladders. After it gets raised up, it has to lock in, the lanyard has to lock in, and it's a very serious thing when you climb a ladder. When you lay it into the building, like our clown is climbing it now, he's going to do a leg lock and carry a person down. He's trying to get up enough nerve to climb the ladder is what he's doing. Now when you get a fireman on the ladder and he's making a rescue, it's not a ladder that we have nowadays. The ladders that we have nowadays are much improved. This ladder here is everything that you do is real work. It takes 4 people just to maintain the ladder when it's straight up and down.
This was a hose evolution showing how the fire hose is carried up the ladder, strapped to the top of the ladder, and then when water is applied, then the correct procedure carrying the hose down again. It's always usually the hose is not charged, it makes it a lot lighter. Here shows the demonstration of an oil or gasoline or fuel fire being extinguished with a CO2 extinguisher. Then there was a frog that extinguished it. Now this shows the barrel water fights, which is a little premature in here, I think.
This was quite the barrel fighting, the water fighting on the barrel. That was quite an experience for a lot of young firemen. What it does is it teaches you hose string application. It teaches you how to apply your stream, how to placement of your hose.
After the evolution, fellows all lined up as an introduction by the master of ceremonies, and as they paraded away from the fire engine, they were introduced and received a round of applause from the crowd. First one out is Chief Lowell Miller, next one Assistant Chief Don Warehane, Joe Velasco, Chief Engineer, Joe Stanwich, Eddie Washington, Norm Warner, Al Trulson, Porkard, Stan Hausman,
Captain Walter Schmidt,
Joe Bolzinger, and Ken Trulson. This is Joe Velasco, Chief Engineer. He was an automobile mechanic in Evanston and took care of the fire trucks and things like that. Lowell again is on the phone. Now we go back to the water fights, where Bernie described that hose streams are directed at the barrel, and hopefully one side will take the advantage and move the barrel over the heads of the other contestants.
We used to go down to Northbrook, belonged to the Cook County Firemen's Association, which was a county organization, and every year we used to go down to Morton Grove and have water fight competition. There was a young lieutenant down there in Morton Grove. He could really pin you. If you didn't get him on the first shot, he'd have you. And today we have his two sons working for the village of Northbrook. Their father did a good job in teaching these fellows, bringing these fellows around to the fire service. Their last name is Kamora, but they're really good guys. They know their job. They're good firemen, and we used to have a lot of fun doing this.
We went to this field days in Morton Grove, which was a county contest, and we won that. And we went to the state finals then, which was conducted over at the Quad Cities, and we ended up losing there. But we fought Lansing, Illinois. But there was a heavy wind that day, and the fellows that chose to go with the wind at their back always won the toss. So we had a lot of fun over there, though, and we did represent Cook County. After the water fights, fellas would assemble, and we used to have those at the carnival. That was the highlight of all the carnivals. We'd go to Glenview to their carnival, Deerfield to their carnival, Morton Grove to their carnival, Northbrook here, and had some little trophy that we'd give to the winners. And after the contest, we'd all sit around and talk about our achievements in the fire service and that, and drink a few pops and beers. We always enjoyed our comradeship with all the neighboring firemen, and there we are sitting around relaxing after a hard day's work with the water fights. And I tell you, that was a hard day's work with the heavy hose and maneuvering that. This is at Northbrook days. Again, the Northbrook Fire Department was responsible for the tickets and selling tickets for the car. They purchased the car and would take posters around to the different taverns and encourage them to sell tickets for us. Fellas on the picture there was Joe Stanwich, and I don't know who the lady is, but there's Clarence Meyer. He worked at the Northbrook Garage. That's Stan Hausman with his back to the camera. He was treasurer at the time of the fire department. We always had the trucks over there for two reasons. One, for display to show the village people and the people coming from surrounding towns what equipment we had. This is a picture of the new fire station with the 3 bays that housed the equipment that you presently previously seen as a civic building. Notice that those were bricked up and windows placed in, and architecturally they were very well constructed to appear nice. This was the old pump house and where the village public works was housed years ago.
That door on the right-hand side, that last little door you were looking at there, that was Northbrook's Public Works. It was. They had a well in there. The first well that they ever driven in the village of Northbrook was inside that building in the back.
This is Fire Prevention Week, which was held on the grounds adjacent to junior high school. Again, now we showed a Squad 155, which carried a lot of the first aid equipment and responded to fires with other equipment. And here's the two rural trucks coming.
That squad truck had a 400 or 500 watt floodlights on it also, with a generator.
There's a picture of the junior high school in the background. Here the fire department lined up. The Legion paraded with us and helped encourage the turnout from the village.
Probably 90% of those Legionnaires and those firemen there, the firemen were probably all Legionnaires, at least 90% of them.
Again, we show different demonstrations, what happens when you get a grease fire. Here it's extinguished with a CO2. Now he attempts to put water on it, which increases the velocity of the fire. So that was to prove that don't put water on a grease fire. Then fireproof material had just come out. There was fireproof application to drapes, and it showed that the drapes were trying to be burned. This is a Christmas tree that had been treated with fire prevention, or fireproofing equipment. Here's two closets that were painted with fireproof paint, and you show the one that had no painting, burst into flames, where the one was on the right was retarded quite a bit by the fireproof paint. But in time it did wear off and it did burn. Here they demonstrate what happens with a car fire.
Now watch where they put the hose line. The first application of the water, they put it right in the car, trying to save a victim if there was a victim in the car. That's our main job. Try and get anybody out of the car that's in the car. Now you see here they have a victim out of the car, working on the victim. You see they got the hood up and they're applying water. That guy in the yellow helmet there, that's Augie Bennett. He was one of our chiefs here also.
At the time he was a lieutenant, and later
Yes.
on when they went.
And here's the station wagon that I was telling you about before. You get in the back of that with a patient and you're rolling around like a basketball in a bushel basket trying to do anything back there. Nowadays if you did that, they'd probably take you out of service.
This was scaffolding brought from the high school to give you an idea what a three-story building would look like. That three sections of the scaffolding showed the different tiers of a house or an apartment building. Later on you'll see that we put some fire on that and then applied water with what we called a cellar pipe. Here's part of the crowd in the bleachers. Again, we raised a ladder, rescued a fellow from there. Now this picture is backward. We're showing the fellow being carried away before he was taken down the ladder. Here he comes down the ladder.
You do it the same way today as you're doing it there. The same way.
Fellow's body's rested on the fellow's knee, and his arms are suspended through the arms of the rescuer.
want to make a point here. That engine 156 there, that was a village engine. When you took that one out of the garage, out of the firehouse to go to a call, when you went out the door, you had to make sure that the front wheels got down to the curb before you turned. If you didn't, the tail end of the vehicle would hit the door jamb and knock anybody off the back of the rig. That rig's sitting right there you're looking at now, because it was extra long for carrying our banger ladders on there.
This again shows you that simulating a house fire or fire in the second floor or an attic fire, they take a hose line to the roof, make a hole in the roof, and then they can put this, what we call the cellar pipe, into this hole and extinguish the fire from the top. Again, this could be also utilized with a basement fire by chopping a hole in the floor above the fire in the basement and applying the cellar pipe there. This was another demonstration of our newly purchased what they call that big gun?
Deluge gun.
Deluge gun, a big deluge gun.
Each one of our rigs has one of those mounted on them today.
The nozzle can be changed from a fog to three-quarter fog to straight stream. There's a straight stream to reach a farther distance. Again, there are 2 or 3 lines can be tied into this deluge gun from a engine pumper. I don't recall what, how many gallons per minute does this deluge gun to discharge, but there's a close-up picture of it.
That one there sitting there was 100 gallons a minute for sure. And also take in consideration what kind of tip you have on it.
One of the police officers, Bud Reed, he's coming down the ladder from extinguishing one of the fires with a CO2. Once again, we have to put everything away, drain the hose. There's Lieutenant Howard Plutz. Norm Warner. Bill Israelian. Louis Sefker. Or is it Tom Small?
That's Tom Small.
There's Joe Bollinger again. Joe Bollinger became fire prevention chief after he was injured at a fire. The Peony farmhouse on Dundee Road was on fire on a Sunday morning, and when pulling plaster down, some of the lime got in his eye and he lost sight of his left eye. Previously he had worked for the telephone company.
The first real big fire I ever went to with this Northbrook Fire Department, I went with on an engine, and the officer in charge was Captain Plutz. We went into the basement of this building, and after we were there a little while, they came and told us we better come out. We came out, the whole thing was burning. It was quite an experience. It was the first big fire that I ever went to.
This we went to Muskegon, Michigan. There was a fire training school there. Why this is in here, I don't know, because later on they had quite a few fire demonstrations. Fellows climbing this wall and what do they call it, paramating, when they come down with the ropes.
They were Pam-Pier ladders.
Yeah, Pam-Pier ladders. And then they were repelling rope accents. These were some of the equipment that was lined up. Chiefs from out of the area all drove their own cars over there, and I think we drove a civilian car. I don't know, I don't remember. I don't think we had a fire prevention car or a chief's car at the time. A fellow by the name of Joe Galicia. He went to this fire training at school as an instructor to come back and help train the fellows, and give his ideas what we could do or what we could learn. That's Chief Revac from Northfield Fire Department on the right. Here's going up Shermer Road towards Bartlemy's, which is now the Historical Society. This is taking Shermer Road around the S-curves, approaching Dundee Road. Now going up Dundee Road to Skokie Boulevard, and then turning around and coming back. We are now coming back going west on Shermer. This is Lee Road, Lee and Dundee Road going west.
Notice this Dundee Road's a two-lane highway.
Now we're approaching Waukegan Road. Now we're going across the Milwaukee Railroad tracks and approaching Sanders Road.
Sanders?
At Sanders Road, we'll make a left-hand turn.
That's a chief car in front of us.
There's Sanders Road. Now the Reeves gas station on the right-hand side, we make a left-hand turn, and there's Dominic's. And there's Lake Shermerville, which in those days was a great big field which was on fire. We would take off certain equipment from our fire engine to extinguish the fire, mostly brooms and pump cans. We had maybe 150 feet of booster line hose that we could go to a certain length and extinguish fire. Here's a scene showing us removing the booster line and extinguish the fire with the booster water. Another fellow's tearing a pump can, and we proceed to put out the fire with a pump can.
On a nice spring day, on a Saturday and a Sunday when everybody's cleaning up their properties, we could go from 12 to 20 of these grass fire situations in one day. Especially when they got into the railroad right-of-ways and start burning on the railroad ties, we'd have to carry water. It was quite a workout.
Here's going east on Waller Avenue. That's Sanders Road there.
That's Ed Armstead driving.
These three big poplar trees on the left are still there.
Ed was a lieutenant here when it was a volunteer department.
Now we're coming back into town. The triangle's on the front of the truck, and we're going to swing into First Street. And then back into the station.
If you notice all these pumpers, for a point of information, they're all gasoline operators, no diesels there. These are all gasoline. It was quite a difference in what we have nowadays.
This shows another evolution that we conducted that basically got away from us. This is a barn that's located at the present spot of the American Legion home. This was Seckler's barn, Seckler's farm, and sawdust had been stored in this barn. Eddie Happ had a business with bags of sawdust that he would deliver to all the butcher shops in the general area of Chicagoland. And there was a lot of this sawdust escaped and was on the rafters and other projections in the barn, and once it was ignited, the thing took off like dynamite. One of the trucks was down at about Shannon Road on Finkston Road, and we called it in to respond to what we thought was going to be a little fire, but this is what they saw when they arrived. One mass inferno. We had previously laid a line from the last fire hydrant on Waller Avenue, which was down by what we know as Pucky's Farm. And that brought us a supply of water which was inadequate, as you can plainly see.
If you notice the Scott pack on that one guy's back when the first started, that would lasted you about 12 minutes in a fire. It was a shoulder type slung air pack.
So we used to encounter a few barn fires, not as intense as this, but it usually we're up in the haymow they'd store damp hay up there, and spontaneous combustion would ignite that hay. We had several barns burned down, and I mean, and I could never figure whether they burned down or burned up. But we would respond, and sometimes we'd be able to salvage the framework. But the bad part of it was you could never get to the base of the fire when it was a bunch of hay burning. It'd be burning down in the center, and it was either a lot of manual labor to pitchfork all that hay away so you could get into the base of the fire. But we would try our darndest, and lots of times, like I say, we'd have to shuttle water. One time we had a big 5,000-gallon fuel oil tank that was shuttling water owned by the Braun Oil Company in Northfield, and they filled that with water and would bring it out to us, and we would utilize hooking up to that and pumping the water onto the fire. But you can see that there's a mass of burning there, and it's really hot. We were lucky that nobody got hurt there. This is the 155, our emergency truck, which carried a lot of equipment.
If you pay attention to the pumper that was sitting there, that was a rural pumper. It had 750 gallons, like we said before. Every town in the immediate area, Glenview, Deerfield, Wheeling, Northfield, they all had pumpers that carried 750 gallons or more. And this pumper here sitting is only a 750 gallon GPM also. I know a lot of the firemen that are on the department now will remember that wooden ladder hanging on the side of that pumper, because it got put from one to the other when the new one, when it was replaced. The engine was replaced. The ladder outlasted the pumpers. If you notice, these guys are manning the hard line, that red line that comes off there. We are not allowed nowadays except to take that off the rig except for a garbage can. We all have what we have trash line hoses, which are 1 3/4 inches now.
The motto of the fire department is put the wet stuff on the red stuff. A few scenes back, you've seen there was a lot of red stuff.
And they say you're a fireman when you meet the dragon at the door. When you get on your hands and knees and punch in the door, and you saw what you saw there on the screen, you open the door to somebody's business or a house, and that's what you see, then you've been there. There's a lot of people in the fire service, they work their whole working career and never see that, never. But there are people in some of the truck companies and engine companies in our immediate area, including Northbrook. Those guys, it's every week they meet the dragon in some way, shape, or form.
Just think the work that went in building that bar in the early 1800s, and in a matter of an hour, the whole thing is destroyed. And again, like I say, that's the site of the American Legion home now.
And there's two guys in white shirts and tie. They're going to be paying the dry cleaner again. I know Ken and myself, I know Ken, he used to just go home, take his shirt off and throw it away, because there was no way you were going to save it. And now what he's doing there is putting on a water curtain on a building that's next to the fire so that the fire doesn't heat over and ignite the next building. That takes place in a lot in the larger cities where the structures are close together.
This boy got a little too close. He got a few blisters on his ears. Terrific heat there. This is Mrs. Seckner that owned the property, talking to Don Wareham on the right and Lowell Miller on the left. Background is Mike Holbert on the right, and I don't know who the other fellow was. Here's a rest period after utilizing water being pumped up from the hydrant in a relay system from the hydrant to that engine there. Again, the pickup and restoration of the equipment.
You have to take all that hose back to the station, unroll it, spray water and soap on it, scrub it with a brush, and hang it in the tower to dry.
Now this is taken in a subdivision that's being built on Meadow Road, Lincoln, and several of those streets off of Meadow. That was Boddick's machine shed. There was 4 great big greenhouses up there on the hill adjacent to the streets that are now there, Lincoln and what else?
Keast.
Keast. And this is again on a Sunday morning.
Keystone's up there.
Shows the valve and the hooks up from the engine to the fire to put adapting the hoses to the engine, which will supply water to the fire. Again, you can see the basements that were dug in that area. Bill's owned the property and put that subdivision up. And Boddick, like I say, a fellow by the name of Boddick owned the greenhouses and that machine shed, and we were going to burn that down. Some people said it was a mushroom house, but I doubt it. Boddick had the greenhouses, and he had 4 big white horses that he would haul coal from town for the furnaces in this greenhouse. All winter long, that's all you'd see, the 2 teams of horses trudging, pulling the wagon of coal up the hill to the greenhouses. This is how early Northbrook looked. He's getting ready to open up the valves. I think that was a fictitious sign that was put up there to keep people away. Now the building was ignited and open for drill once again on a Sunday morning. I don't think church got too good of a draw in the summertime. The fellows all went firefighting instead of the church.
You talk about going to church. The Grace Lutheran Church in town here, right on Waller's Avenue, at one time had 7 members that were volunteer people in town. And one morning all of them were in church, and I was one of them, and the siren went off. And the pastor just stopped because we all stood up and ran out the door.
Before collection or after collection?
Before.
Oh.
Now you notice what I was talking about before, opening the door and seeing what the dragon looks like. Now this gentleman here is busting a hole to it so he can get entering in there, stick his hose line in that hole so he can put the fire out, is what he's doing. See, he's carrying a fog pattern so he can get up next to the building to knock the heat back, push the fire back. And after he gets up close enough, then he can open up his stream and attack the fire back in the building. But with the heat that's generated, you have to protect yourself from the heat. And when it burns like that building there, all that's in there is just wood burning. The houses nowadays, or the businesses, have so much chemicals in them that all byproducts of the oil, and they all give off different toxic gases. That's why it's so important that you wear an SCBA when you go into a structure now.
There are so many stories I could tell you about the days of the volunteer fire department. In fact, I tell some of them to the newly released history of the Northbrook Fire Department. Suffice to say, those were good times shared with good people. But the tradition goes on. Today, the Northbrook Fire Department comprises full-time paid men and women with extensive training, both as paramedics and as firefighters. There are fewer fires today because of improved building codes and materials, rigorous fire safety inspections, and increased public fire safety awareness. In fact, about 60% of the calls nowadays are for medical, not fire emergency. But some things never change. The men and women who apply to the fire academies today are filled with the same spirit of public service we were back then. They too thrilled to the sound of the siren and to get the old adrenaline rush whenever they leap onto the engine or ambulance and take off down the street. The equipment is bigger and better nowadays and costs much more, but the heart of the firefighter remains unchanged. I am proud to have served the community as a firefighter. I am proud to represent all of the fellows that were volunteers and the people that are now part of the paid fire department of the village of Northbrook. I salute them and wish them success in their endeavors. I am proud that we are part of the village of Northbrook and hope everyone continues in the good behalf of the fire service. Thank you.